if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong.
Okay, so is this what we're doing now? We're ganging up on allies? I don't know how anyone could have watched Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's attack on Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky last week and not gotten secondhand embarrassment. And I don't know about you, but I was ashamed. Even worse, I felt sorry that Zelensky was ambushed like that, and that's what it was. It was an ambush. In what felt like an episode of some unscripted reality show on VH1. Not only was it a disgusting display, but it was a masterclass in bullying and cowardice. And the attacks weren't just coming from Trump and Vance. You had this right-wing journalist who thought it was appropriate to ask this war-weary leader if he owned a suit because he didn't appreciate his more dressed-down attire. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So let me just give some background. Because Zelensky was at the White House to sign a minerals deal. And if that deal was signed, the move would have allowed the U.S. to have greater access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals and possibly move that country closer to ending its 3-year war with Russia. Newsflash, they didn't sign the deal. And that's because after their testy exchange, where Trump and Vance attempted to dress Zelensky down in front of American reporters, White House advisors asked him to leave. Now, I know Americans are tired of their taxpayer dollars being shipped overseas to fund wars, but Ukraine is an ally. Russia is the enemy, and I think we'd be smart to remember that. So as I was watching the entire meeting, and I didn't watch the clips like a lot of people did, I sat down and I watched what I think was like 50 minutes worth of a meeting. I noticed that Trump had been somewhat calm and courteous at the beginning, and I'm excluding his remark towards Zelensky's attire earlier when they first met. Now, I realized that his attitude shifted almost instantly when Vance started berating Zelensky, asking him if he had ever said thank you for the billions of dollars in aid that the U.S. had sent to his country. For those of you who don't know, Zelensky has shown his gratitude many times. And if anyone in the Trump administration were truly interested in learning the depth of his gratitude, they could have, because it's well documented. I think Trump and Vance just wanted Zelensky to grovel. They wanted him on his knees, thanking the United States for all it's done. And to be fair, the U.S. has done a lot. It's given billions to Ukraine to fight Russia. But Zelensky has said thank you repeatedly.
For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2015.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
Anyway, so Zelensky asked Vance to visit Ukraine so that he could see for himself what things were like on the ground. And Vance declined, saying he's not interested in a propaganda tour. Now, I wonder if he would feel that same way about former Fox News host Tucker Carlson's 2024 trip to Moscow, where he interviewed Putin in a soft, questioning interview that felt more like a YouTube travel vlog. And I think what people are missing is the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine, not the other way around. It's Ukraine that's fighting for its survival and its sovereignty against Vladimir Putin, who, by the way, is a dictator who has no reservation in using brutal tactics to bring his enemies in line. I was surprised to read the New York Post actually say, "Dear Mr. President, this is a dictator," and put Putin on the cover, because it seems that the White House is confused about who is an ally and who's a threat. Now, long before his re-election last November, Trump had expressed some serious concerns with Ukraine, particularly as it relates to the scope and scale of aid that the U.S. is providing. He feels that Ukraine is taking advantage of U.S. support and should be making more concessions to Russia in exchange for peace. And secondly, he feels that the U.S. should prioritize its own economic issues and not always have to serve as the world's policeman. I can't say that I disagree with him on that. That's something that I've said in my own personal capacity, that everybody expects for America to be their policeman, to be their bodyguard, and then they get mad when the bodyguard sets the rules. So in my estimation, don't ask America for anything if you just want to go and do your thing. But my question is, does Donald Trump have that same energy for Israel? Because the United States has given about probably this is a conservative estimate, almost $23 billion and counting to Israel. And a lot of people say that that's a conservative figure. So I couldn't imagine Trump addressing Benjamin Netanyahu the way that he did Zelensky. One of the things I noticed during this whole fiery exchange, and to be honest, I don't even know if I can call it an exchange, because Zelensky kept his calm most of the time. I think he just defended himself, but he was very mild-mannered. It was Trump and Vance in particular that were really getting upset. But one of the things that he stressed was that the U.S. doesn't feel the impact of war due to its nice ocean. What he's saying is it's separated, it's isolated from all this war. But he warned that the U.S. could feel those problems in the future. Oh, well, that didn't sit well with Donald Trump, who immediately fired back. So just take a listen to this exchange really quickly.
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of
war.
millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
a
entire meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire
today.
meeting, have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
So following this whole meeting with Donald Trump and Vance and Zelensky, we've seen pro-Ukraine protests spreading across the U.S. You have hundreds of protesters taking to the streets in L.A. and New York and Boston, and they're showing their support for Ukraine. Many of them say that they're really disappointed and upset about what happened in the Oval Office.
This is Vermont. I mean, hate doesn't have a home here. So you can't show up here after going to Europe and telling Macron to be nice to the AfD. J.D. Vance is a literal Nazi sympathizer. It's not really up for debate anymore. The people who question that don't rely on the same set of facts that the rest of us do, and lies don't get you far in Vermont.
Around 2 p.m., Vance's motorcade was seen driving down Williston Road, with demonstrators lined up waiting for his arrival.
And it got so disruptive, in fact, that Vance, J.D. Vance that is, and his family were in Vermont at a ski resort, or they were planning to be at a ski resort in Vermont, and had to switch their plans because they were just concerned about safety issues. And you see, that's the funny part about it, because after that exchange, Vance gets to go on vacation, and Zelensky ultimately will have to go back to a war zone. He is in the UK now, getting a warm reception from King Charles. Other leaders are, still voicing their support for an ally in Ukraine. And there's a lot of criticism back here at home for what Trump and Vance did. Now, there's a lot of support, too, from Republican camps, but they seem to be a bit split as well. Over on the Democrat side, Chuck Schumer said that Trump and Vance are doing Putin's dirty work. And they said that the Senate Democrats won't stop fighting for freedom and democracy. Hakeem Jeffries, who's the minority leader in the House, said today's White House meeting with the president of Ukraine was appalling and will only serve to further embolden Vladimir Putin. Because after watching him berate an ally, in quotes, what else would he do? He thinks that he has the upper hand, and he feels like he is in with Trump. One of the things that really bothered me about this entire exchange is that I felt like Vance was trying to show off for his boss. His boss, the man who he once likened to Hitler before he became his running mate. But I thought like he was just trying to show off for his boss. He was just trying to show Trump that he can be a tough guy. And so he came across as an attack dog and even worse, a lapdog to me. And I couldn't understand why he was doing that with an ally, because I don't think that they would have tried that with Putin. And I was watching and waiting for anybody in that room to show some respect and diplomacy. I was waiting for an adult to get everybody back on track. I looked at Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was sitting there like a kid who had pooped his pants and didn't want to move because he was scared they were going to smell it. He was just sitting there just spineless. And then days after, went on X to thank the president for standing up for America in a way that no president has ever had the courage to do before. That's our little Marco. So I wanted to talk about the comments about his attire, about Zelensky's attire. So we had conservative journalist Brian Glenn. He's a right-winger, and he's the boyfriend, as I mentioned, of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Not surprised. And he was asking why he wasn't wearing a suit in the White House. So take a listen.
Second question. My second question for President Zelensky. Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not respecting.
I don't have such.
Office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Yes, maybe one.
Maybe something like
yours.
Yes.
Maybe something better. I don't know. We will see. Maybe something cheaper than. Yeah. Thank you.
For me, not only was that question inappropriate, but it was laughable. For him to mention the dignity of the office. Okay, so let's talk about the dignity of the office. Donald Trump has a gold-framed mugshot hanging outside the Oval Office. Let's marinate on that for a minute. And to be honest, why should Zelensky dress up when the White House has unofficially sanctioned casual attire? Let's not forget Mr. Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who's now in charge of Doge. He's notorious for parading around the Oval Office wearing his most casual tech bro gear, complete with his Make America Great Again hat. And even worse, he turned a, quote, dignified office into a romper room by bringing his 4-year-old son along during a press conference. So when Musk's son wasn't perched atop his father's shoulders or firing imaginary shots at the media, he was wiping boogers on the Resolute desk or telling Trump that he was not the president. So given those facts, Glenn and other Trump supporters should have zero to say about Zelensky's attire. The reality is this is a man whose country is at war. And he's frequently on the front lines with his troops, supporting them. So I really couldn't care less what he wears at this time. Anyway, I was just happy to see Zelensky being well received on the world stage, despite what happened in America with Trump and Vance. And let me just say something as I end out here. Just because an ally is in a tough spot and needs America's assistance doesn't mean that we should act nasty towards them. We don't know what the future holds. Many empires that were powerful and seemed indestructible have fallen, from the Roman Empire to the British Empire to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So we got to be careful. America is a superpower today, but we don't know what's going to happen in the years to come. Anyway, I'm really interested to hear what you all thought about what went down in the Oval Office with Trump, Vance, and Zelensky. So please drop your comments down below, and I will see you in my next episode. Bye.